So obviously we're going to body drop this truck. It's probably right there in the title. I don't know, I haven't seen the video yet. But before we get started on that, I'd like to have a conversation with you guys. I want to talk about what we're doing, how we're doing it, why we're doing it, all that good stuff. Now I realize only 6 of you guys watch my videos all the way through. So if you're one of those 6, hang out, we'll talk. If you're only here to watch me screw up a body drop, fast forward to that time right there. That's where the work's going to start. Just understand that I've never done this. There's a good chance we're going to get it wrong and have to fix it, just like we did with the rear end. We did the rear end 3 times, but we finally got it right. So body drop's probably going to be no different. For the rest of you, a brilliant woman that I love and adore once told me that some people have a problem finishing a project because once you finish that project, you have to accept the results. Of course, now I'll add that along with those results come the opinions and criticism of other people, and the concept of I should have done this, I wish I'd have done that, but I have an issue more along the lines of starting the project, especially when I'm unsure as to what I'm doing. If I can't do the research, if I don't have all the details worked out, I put it off and I put it off and I procrastinate. I have a tendency to try to nail down every detail before I get started. And in the case of the body drop, I've found tons of videos on YouTube of trucks that have been body dropped. I've found some how-to videos on how to body drop a bed, but we got the bed covered. It's the cab that we need to figure out. And Joe keeps saying that Google is your friend, and Google don't like me. And apparently YouTube algorithm doesn't care for me much either. But so I can't find the videos. So we're just gonna go ahead and jump into this and get started and fix the mistakes as we make them. Now the stupid truck is a static drop, and I want to be clear. I started this project with absolutely no intentions of bagging this truck. And currently I still don't intend to, but later on down the road, that is a possibility. Now there are 2 things keeping me from entertaining the idea of bagging this truck right now. And the first one is the simple fact that the trailing arms on that Corvette rear end will hit the frame before the frame hits the ground. I've checked. So that immediately means in order for me to lay this truck out, I'm going to have to rebuild and redesign that frame again. And I've already done that 3 times, and I have no intentions of doing it a 4th time right now. Later on down the road, maybe. But at the moment, I don't plan to. In the words of some guy on the internet, don't be that guy that bags a truck that doesn't lay out. So it is what it is. We're not planning on redoing the frame. And the second reason is obviously if we did redo the frame for a 4th time, then that's going to add probably another 3-4 months to getting this project finished. So in the process of procrastination, I did everything I honestly could to talk myself out of doing this body drop, which obviously is going to happen now. I went to Johnny Johnson's Hardcore S10 group and posed some questions and got feedback. And then the body drop dilemma, which was a previous video of mine. John Brown said, I dig it. A static truck with a body drop. That's cool. Most of the people in the Hardcore S10 group, they kind of looked at it, if you're not going to lay it out, there's no point in body dropping it. The zip tie guy, or Patina Patrick, I don't know. I ain't never met the guy. Seems like a cool guy, but he offered the input of wait until you get to the point that you want to bag it, then do a full body drop. And that's probably the best advice I could have gotten, but I'm not real good at taking advice, apparently. And the fact of the matter is that my only reason for body dropping this truck is to hide the frame a little bit. In its current state, whenever I step back and look at the truck, I can see the frame underneath the body, and I just want to drop it about 1.5 inches, hide that frame. I want the body higher than the frame so that the frame offers some protection to the body in the event of, going over a speed bump sideways or whatever. But I want to hide the frame a little bit, which seems kind of counterintuitive due to the fact that we're going through so much work to showcase this frame under the bed when the bed's going to be up. But when it's all said and done, we're going to do this, apparently. So if you stuck around for this conversation, let me know in the comments. I don't ask for comments often. Just say 1 of 6. If it was worth sticking around for, then say yes. If you'd rather have that 5 minutes of your life back, say no. When it comes down to it, that'll tell me whether or not I need to keep sharing the personal aspect of this build. It does me good to get it out there, but at the same time, I realize a lot of people might not want to see it. And if you're not interested in it, then there's no point in me doing that. I'll just do the work and show that on the video. So let me know something in the comments, please. Let's body drop a truck. I'm Johnny Mac, and this is my garage, where we never get anything right on the first try. Join me as we work on super cool projects around the garage. Go to car shows and cruise-ins, where we'll showcase classic cars and trucks, hot rods, rat rods, and mini trucks. Along the way, we plan to turn this 88 S10 into a show-worthy lowrider. We never know what's going to happen, but one thing's guaranteed. Sometimes you gotta tear it all down and start over. And that's what makes this the Wrong Way Garage. This DJ be Warren G. Yeah, I was listening to music right along in here, so there's no audio on the video. We might as well do one of those time-lapse, hurry up, make it happen things. Yeah. Turning back. Box this in, but we're gonna wait until we get the engine running and radiator, the force board, all that stuff in place. And the reason is we might need to trim some of this back here to make more room for radiator and what have you. And if we have to, we don't want to have to cut out what we've already installed. So so I started out grinding down the metal down to the bare metal, get rid of the paint in the areas that we're going to cut. And the reason I did that was because we're going to have to grind all that paint off in order to weld it up anyway. So let's go ahead and do it while it's still in one piece, and that'll probably make it a little easier. And then we'll move from there. Now, as far as the drop, first thing I did was I put a little extra weight in the bed to make the cab level, because I like the way it sat before. I made the cab level so that whenever I drop it, all I got to do is make the cab level again, and then whenever I pull the extra weight out of the bed, then the rake should be about the same as what it was before. I made it a point to make the cab 1/8 of an inch higher than where it sat originally, and the reason is I want to take the pressure off as I cut so that the cab doesn't just slam down or get hung up or anything like that. I also want to point out that it was not necessary to bring this cut this far up the wall. There will be a port in the bed, which will take up quite a large amount of this space, and I wanted that cut to come through what will be the port, or what you young whippersnappers refer to as a blow-through. So the cut line will go through the port or the blow-through, and that means that this area, although I will tack it, will not have to be completely welded up. All the welds that will have to be completely welded up will be on the ends of the cab, in the corners, and then come down and across the floor. This ain't gonna work, I can't see crap. Much better. Let's take a second and talk about all the things that didn't make it into the video, but at the same time they need to be mentioned so that you know what was going on. First and foremost, the blower motor for the AC was sitting directly on top of the tire, which granted was the old tires, but it was sitting on the tire, which means that the cab had no room to come down. So the blower motor, the condenser box, whole 9 yards, came off the front of the firewall. At some point, I removed the steering wheel and steering column, rather, and also the fuel pedal, the gas pedal. That was to make room for me to get up into the firewall to do my grinding and cutting and what have you. And lastly, I'm ashamed to admit that I didn't think of it sooner. I covered up these wheels. Greg spent 8 hours polishing these wheels, and I don't need them to get messed up, so I covered them up. Should have done that way sooner, but here we are. So we're going to call this done for the night. I want to take a moment and explain exactly how difficult this is for me. Fact of the matter is, this truck started out as do everything that you wanted to do back when you had your first truck. It's turned into a lot more than that. Here we are with an engine swap, a rear end swap, a transmission swap, and a body drop. These are very difficult cuts for me to make. I realize that that is exactly why I'm taking so long to get started. But obviously at this point, we're committed. So in this area right here, we're going to have to cut out 1.5 inches. Now, in the area of the firewall, the pinch weld sits a little too close to the bell housing. So my plan is to cut right above that line there, well, right at that line, that's the line I drew. And then we're going to cut this angle right here on this bend. And we're going to do that all the way down to here and here, and then we'll come up and over. Now the reason behind that's sort of straight up and down, so you cut a line here, it can't drop because the metal's going to hit the other metal. Now over here, cut there and there, that metal sits further behind that metal, it'll drop down. Then we'll add a piece of metal in between the transmission hump and the firewall. Over here, we'll have to cut out due to the fact that that metal will hit that metal, so you got to create a gap and bring it down to meet it. Believe this, but I made a couple of errors, mainly with my cuts getting a little bit squiggly, but more importantly, this area right here where the body mount is has external bracing underneath the cab, and I did not account for that. And then also this area back here has external bracing under the cab for this entire area, which required me to whip out the Sawzall, and I sort of jacked that all up. The first round over on the driver's side, I did much better, but in the process of doing this side, I fouled that up. But let's see if I can. There. That's completely loose. Alright, so I'm gonna have to jack up the body, disconnect the body mounts. I made sure that the cut line was outside of the body mount so I don't do something even more stupid and cut the body mount. But you gotta jack the cab up a little bit and cut that out with the Sawzall. The only reason I'm showing you all of this is the simple fact that, well, I've never done anything the right way the first try. I made a comment on another page recently that when people make videos, they tend to try to make themselves look good, and in the process of doing that, it gives the viewer the idea that they can just whip this right out, and the fact of the matter is that you're going to run into problems that you're not expecting because you didn't see it on the video. I ran into problems. Of course, now we all know I couldn't find any videos. But the simple fact is, don't run into a project like this with unrealistic expectations. So, yeah, we'll go from here. We'll fix whatever we foul up. Alright, mistakes were made, and we probably need to talk about them, but this haircut is not up for discussion. Alright, if you were paying attention, one major mistake was made, and if you've done this before, you know exactly what that was. If you've never done this before, let's elaborate. The mistake was made in a previous video. I don't know how to do that little thing that pops up and shows you the other video, but the mistake, the major mistake, was made in another video. Ah, there it is, right there. I took the frame off the jack stands and set it on the suspension, and that was wrong, mister. The bottom line is that when the cab got cut out, that released about 400 or so pounds off the frame, which made the frame jump up. Well, it didn't jump, but that made the frame come up higher, which meant instead of an exact 1.5 inch drop, I ended up with something that was a little more like this. About 5 minutes ago in this video was the moment that Johnny Johnson mentioned on a previous video that something or another about the measurement of the S-Series trucks between the fender and the ground and blah, blah, blah. I didn't quite get it, but the gist of it, what I did get out of what he said, was that I needed to do all of my measurements from the body line, not from the bottom of the vehicle. So that's what we're doing from this point forward. Maybe we can get him to make a dedicated video explaining exactly what he was trying to get across, only this time maybe explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old in his video, because I don't get it. But I do know now I need to be doing my measurements from the body line. That's what I'm doing. Overall, I'm not too unhappy with it. I mean, 1.5 inches isn't horrible, and when it's all said and done, it's not going to be that much of a increase over the lip on the door jamb. However, obviously we're a little more than 1.5 inches. Alright, let's recap. I now believe that most people who do this type of work probably take the cab off the truck, set it up on some jack stands, sawhorses, maybe they flip it up on its back, I don't know. Do the work and put it back together. Now, I do believe that my plan, which was leave the cab on the truck, cut the floor out, drop the cab down, weld it back in, that was a solid plan. The problem was that I had the truck sitting on the suspension. Had I blocked the frame up off the suspension or put it on jack stands, then that would have been fine, because nothing moved when the cab drops. You just got to drop it 1.5 inches. But understand, This isn't that big of a deal. We can work through this. The simple fact of the matter is, all it takes is a measuring tape, a little bit of welding, extra metal. We got this covered. But that's the way mini trucking works. There's not a be-all, end-all for mini trucking modifications. Do it how you can do it, how it makes sense in your head, and make it work. As long as it's safe and it works, it's not necessarily wrong. Stick around for part 2. We'll figure out how to fix all this crap. Might be stupid, but it's not necessarily wrong.